So I'm happy. Sinagada, you're welcome. My brother Dayo is also here. Great to have you. Yoruba goddess, everybody in the audience, we greet you all. Also, Sinagada,
Hey,
Sinagada,
hey. Hi, everyone.
yes,
Can you hear me?
you're welcome. You're our special guest today. You're
Oh,
welcome.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm attending an urgent job. I'm listening to you from work. Whenever I get the chance, I will continue to engage with you.
Okay. Oh, but the problem is this: you are our special speaker. So how do we do it?
Oh, right. Okay. In that case, can we continue this way? And I'm finishing work at 5,
Mhm. Okay.
which
Okay.
is 5 UK time.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
can we, yeah,
we should continue.
can we continue the same way we've started? Um, because yeah, I can do what I'm doing now, but I can get interrupted anytime because I'm working.
We want you to start the prelude.
Sorry.
We want you to start the prelude. You give an introduction.
Yeah, yeah. I can do it now, but
Okay, do it now. Do it now. Okay, it's over
yeah.
to you.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Yeah, I think the topic is really very essential, very important topic. This is one of the things that we Africans tend to overlook for two reasons. One, um, um, we paint wrong picture for Imperial Ethiopia by saying, oh, there was a country that was never colonized, and Ethiopia is that country that was never colonized by the European. Uh, the, the, the problem with that is when Ethiopia was colonized, first of all, to begin with. It was colonized from 1936 until 1955 by Britain and Italy. By Britain indirectly after between 1942 and 1955. But with Italy, it was directly colonized by Italy from 1936 until 1942. The second point that I'm going to talk about is well, it's why did it take the European until 1936 to occupy Ethiopia? Is because Ethiopia itself was a colonizer. Ethiopia was a party in the process of the scramble for Africa, or in the process of the partitioning of Africa. If you see my PTR, uh, you can see a list of treaties, agreements that shows Ethiopia's direct involvement in the process of the scramble for Africa. Um, I put the treaties out there for you to Google it for yourself. They are all in public domain, and I prefer to use the treaties because they are unambiguous. They are not subject to interpretation or any analysis, and anybody can see and understand rather than um, primarily basing my submission on books. So if you see the first treaty, it's the treaty signed uh, by Ethiopia and Ethiopian Emperor and Italy on the 2nd of May 1889. So the the term of this treaty, the main gist of the treaty is one for Italy to occupy the northeastern part of Africa, countries, what you call the current day Eritrea and part of northeastern Sudan, a region of Kassala. And in return, Italy gave firearms to Emperor Menelik of the day. Uh, so That is one. And two, by the way, I want you to read whenever you see these treaties that I'm giving you here. Put that in the context of the period of the implementation of the Berlin Conference. I mean, the Project Berlin Conference. So whenever we're talking about the period of scramble for Africa, we're talking about the period between 1884 and up until the beginning of the First World War, 1914. So that is why I specifically picked these treaties. I'll get back to why Emperor Menelik of Ethiopia was so desperate to get his hands on these firearms. I'll get back to that. But according to the treaty, Italy agreed to provide about 130,000 muskets and about 30 cannons. So, which the emperor used to invade uh, countries in the current day Empire Ethiopia, including my own country, Oromia. And so the conquest to Oromia, which was assisted by the Europeans, it was not only from Italy that Emperor Menelik received firearms, but from French, from whoever. Okay, that is one. And the second one is if you see the treaty, the Anglo-Ethiopian Treaty 1902, that is it is a wide it captures a wide range of agreements within these treaties that Ethiopia reached with the European colonial powers. The first one being to delineate the boundary between what they called Imperial Ethiopia and Sudan. That is one. And the second one, that was arbitrary boundary, by the way. And in fact, it is the reason why there is a war now going on between Ethiopia and Sudan. You might have been listening, getting the news that I think it was yesterday or the day before that there was a serious armed conflict between Ethiopian soldiers and Ethiopian armed forces and Sudanese army. And Ethiopia is claiming that Sudan has occupied Ethiopia's land. But Sudan is saying, no, I have not occupied any land that belonged to Ethiopia. I have regained my own land, which according to this treaty was given to me, in fact, which was given to Britain. And included in that treaty is um, the issue of the Nile River. If you see Article 3 of that treaty, it specifically states that Ethiopia should defend British interest by one not constructing any facility, any dam or any infrastructure along the Nile River, and two, by not allowing other African countries or by not allowing any other African countries in the basin to construct anything to protect the interest of Britain. So you all know Egypt was the colony of Britain at that time. So Egypt inherited that same treaty, and that's the cause of the tension over the Nile River among Ethiopia, Sudan, and the other Nile Basin countries of Africa. So Egypt is effectively saying you cannot touch this water. And that claim of Egypt is coming from this treaty which Ethiopia signed as part of the process of the scramble for Africa. And there are many other treaties which I haven't got time to go into the detail, including the treaty that delineated Imperial Ethiopia's boundary with French colonial boundary, which today you call Djibouti, as a result of which, by the way, when the Afar One Nation was split, part of the Afar Nation was given to Imperial Ethiopia, part was given to France, which you call the current day Djibouti, and part was, according to the Wuchale Treaty, the first treaty I mentioned to you, was given to Italy, and those are the people who are currently stifled in Eritrea. The other treaty is, I'm just giving you a synopsis, is what they call the Addis Ababa Treaty. The Addis Ababa Treaty signed, you can Google it on the 23rd of October 1996. This one is really interesting. Listen carefully. Uh, Following the Wuchale Treaty, Italy established its base. The Italian colonial powers established their base in Africa. Before the Wuchale Treaty, uh, there was what they called the Italian Rubatino Shipping Company that had small land in Red Sea area. But this Wuchale Treaty gave them the right to occupy um, the whole of Eritrea, including part of Sudan, Kassala. But later on, Italy decided to even take over the land they agreed to for Imperial Menelik to take. So they decided to invade Ethiopia. That happened several years later, okay, quite a few years later, and which led to the war, the first Ethio-Eritrean war, um, as a result of which Italy was defeated at the Battle of Adwa. Okay, and this war was fought by all Africans in the region. It's not a victory specifically should be given to Abyssinia, because the Afar people fought. The Afar people today, they are in Eritrea, in Djibouti, and the Somali people fought today. They are in Ethiopia, in Kenya, or even the Oromo people fought, because it was later on, after the Battle of Adwa, that the delineation of these countries that took place. So uh, let me cut it short. Italy was defeated at the Battle of Adwa, and even though the African fighters were determined to wipe Italy out of Africa, out of Eritrea, Ethiopia signed this agreement, this treaty with Italy, which I just mentioned, the Addis Ababa Treaty in 1896, or 23rd of October. And they signed the treaty with defeated Italy, but they allowed Italy to continue to occupy the northeastern part of Africa and to give compensation for Ethiopia. So basically, yeah, I don't want to go into interpretations of what this means. Uh, Millions and millions of Africans died, but Ethiopia ended up negotiating with Italy, signing this treaty, and allowing Italy to continue to occupy the land they had been given by Ethiopia's empire. So that is the, 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 the main idea of the treaty. And you can read all other treaties. There were many treaties that Ethiopia signed between 1884 and 1909. It was these treaties that structured, that delineated the boundaries of Empire of Ethiopia. So what happened next was, after the Battle of Adwa, Ethiopia continued to invade other African countries, like I mentioned to you, the Oromo, the Walaita, the Sidama, the Kafa, and these invasions were attended by genocide. If you are interested in reading books, I'm going to PTR one book that was written by an independent scholar by the name of Marshall de Salvek. Let me PTR it for you. Yeah, you can see this book. He gives figure, and the book was published in 1901. So right, right during the process of carving up Empire Ethiopia, and he gives figure, and he says more than half of Ethiopia's, Oromo's population was killed. So while the Oromo were fighting with fighting Emperor Menelik, Ethiopia's expansion, but because of the superiority of the European machine guns, the Oromo were forced to surrender. So that took more than half the population of the Oromo. And the author goes on. He's not even African author, okay? And there is one nation called Walaita that was the nation that established one of the ancient civilizations. More than 80%, more than 80% of the Walaita people were killed in the fighting Ethiopia. And the list goes on and on. So finally, that is how Ethiopia was structured. And the interesting thing is, following this, after Emperor Menelik uh, started this project, it was Emperor Haile Selassie that consolidated the project, Empire of Ethiopia, consolidated by doing what? By legislating the first ever written constitution of the empire. It is in public domain. I put it on my PTR earlier. The first ever written constitution of the empire in 1931, which later was revised in 1955 after the emperor went back from exile. You know, the emperor of Ethiopia, Emperor Haile Selassie, fled the country in 1936 when Italy occupied. But after he got back, he revised the constitution. And that constitution was fascistic by its very nature. You can see it for yourself. One, if you read Article 4 of the constitution, it tells you that um, the, the the Amhara or the, the tribe of the emperor were not Africans. Article 4 of the Constitution tells you, the narrative that underpinned the formation of Empire of Ethiopia, in which they say, well, we are descendants of King Solomon of Israel. So the detail of that story is really interesting in many ways, but to cut it short, they practically are saying we're not Africans. And the reason why they say we're not Africans is to just justify the superiority of their clan or their tribe over the other tribes. And that mentality has continued. And the constitution was in force until 1974. And but now, these countries, including my country, Oromia, and Walaita, Sidama, Ogaden. Ogaden, by the way, it's interesting. Ogaden was given to Empire of Ethiopia by Britain as a gift. And if you take a region in Ethiopia, a region called Gambela, was swapped traded by another region from the northern part of the empire, northern part of northeastern part of Africa, Kassala. Kassala was actually initially was part of Tigray, and then Britain interested in Kassala because of its strategic importance. So they took Kassala and gave Gambela in exchange for Kassala to Empire of Ethiopia. So put these things in perspective, in the context, and see what is going on in Ethiopia at the moment. The war, the Oromo Liberation Front fight Ethiopia's government to kind of maintain this same Ethiopia. As a result of which, I think maybe we can enrich it through Q&A later. But it is what is destabilizing Africa, and it's a kind of ticking time bomb. But people might take it less seriously, those treaties and the way Ethiopia's boundaries were delineated. it is literally a ticking time bomb waiting to go off. So to begin with, let me stop it there, and I'll stick around to reflect on any question that may arise.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kaujija Sinagada
Yeah.
from Oromia country in current Ethiopia. You're welcome. We welcome everyone once again. We briefly like to reset the room. This is Think Yoruba First platform, and today we have an erudite intellectual from East Africa. His name is Senagada. He's an Oromia nationalist, and today he's taking us down the historical timeline of what is happening in Ethiopia. As we all know, Ethiopia is in the state of civil war for the past close to 1 year, 12 months. And many people do not actually understand why Ethiopia is in a state of civil war. It is deeply historical what is currently happening in Ethiopia. And as nationalists, we must always take the intellectual route. We must always take the intellectual pathway, which is based on true history, factual history, to actually understand what is Ethiopia. So the first thing that first struck me was that Emperor Menelik played a crucial role as equal sitting on the table with Europeans in the balkanization of ancient African kingdoms and empires. Thank you so much, Senageda. Hopefully, in the next 30 minutes, you'll be more clearer, and our people audience are also surely going to enjoy you because it's absolutely beautiful listening to you. I can listen to you all day long because your knowledge of history is so deep, especially along the Central and East Africa and North Africa. I would also want to ask other admins, other people, moderators on the stage to also contribute before we finally come back to Sinagada because I have some questions for him, and I think the other moderators should also chip in into the discussion so far so good. And I know we've been taking notes. I would start from my brother Dio uh, because you are also an historian, very erudite and very, you are also thoroughbred. Please, what can you also, what can you infer? What are your submissions, your contributions to what our historian today and our special guest today, Sinagada, has spoken about? Over to you, Mr. Dayo.
Thanks, Ari. It was beautiful listening to Kajelcha as he recapped the history of the Ethiopian Empire and the parts which Johannes the Fourth, Emperor Menelik, as well as what's his name, Ras Alula, played in the expansion of the Ethiopian Empire to which was basically what gave Ethiopia its present Ethiopia as presently constituted today. That shape you see of what constituted Ethiopia, the historical background behind it, and how it all happened. Because many of us might think, oh, when we hear Ethiopia, and its connection with these ancient relics of history, and we think, oh, Ethiopia is supposed to be one of those ancient African states that probably had natural boundaries, and for many of us, it's kind of unthinkable that Ethiopia, that we know today was basically also is also an artificial state, and it's an entity put together by the force of arms and the genocide of entire communities and bloodletting, bloodshed, and unwanted suffering. Yes, I was aware about the expansion of the Empire of Ethiopia, like Mr. Kajalcha said. You know, expansion from um, the home base of the Ethiopian Empire in the central north to areas further west, further south, areas largely inhabited by the Oromo people, the Sidama, the Guraje, the Walaita, the Kambata, and so on and so forth. He also talked about the annexation of the Somali region and the addition of that to Ethiopia. I was aware of that as well. There's an entire region of Ethiopia that is inhabited by Somalis that was never part of Ethiopia, not even part of the Ethiopian Empire upon its expansion. But of course, he already talked about how it was gifted to the emperor as a gift by the British. So it's all, he already laid the foundation. It was basically a meeting of oppressors and just the balkanization and gerrymandering of the indigenous African people, indigenous African kingdoms, and the establishment and expansion of an oppressive empire. And basically, the result of that is what we are seeing today. Ethiopia is embroiled in a civil war. I mean, Ethiopia is one of those states that, for the most part of its history, especially since the galvanization of the supposed Ethiopian nation, has always been embroiled in one form of conflict or the other. You already talked about the border skirmish that happened 2 days ago between Ethiopia and Sudan. He already, I mean, about five Sudanese soldiers were killed by Ethiopian border, well, not soldiers, I can say maybe Ethiopian militia, because the Ethiopian state is denying involvement of any sort. But of course, we all know what is really happening. So yes, Mr. Kajosha did a wonderful job, and I was aware of so many other things, but I am also learning as well. I have heard. I mean, one of the new things I learned was. He talked about how the Ethiopian Empire was actually complicit in the signing of the Nile Water. Like, that was sort of like a shocker to me, because like I know that the Ethiopia of now is claiming that they had no part to play in that, and of course the treaty has to be renegotiated. That the same treaty that allotted, I think it's more than 80% of the Nile waters to one single country, downstream country, which was Egypt, and about 20% of it to Sudan. And of course, the upper riparian countries get little or nothing, because, of course, the excuse is that they get enough rainfall, and as such, they do not really need the Nile waters. The treaty, which was negotiated under the British with Anglo-Egyptian Sudan. So it's sort of like a surprise to me that Ethiopia actually is, well, I'm hearing that for the first time, that the Ethiopian Empire was actually complicit and they signed that treaty. So I'm learning as much as you guys, and I will come in like in between, and if possible, chip one or two things that I know, and just would like to contribute to the subject matter. Thank you very much, Ari. Thank you, Kajelcha, and thank you every other mod on stage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to also see Dr. Arale in the room. Yeah,
Where is Dr. Ali? Is he here?
yeah. Oh, sorry, Dr. Gele. It's not Dr. Arale. I'm sorry, Dr. Gele, because they both are my favorite scholars.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Dr. Gele.
Just before Dr. Gailey goes, I just wanted to make a very quick shout out. That please, for those who are new coming into the room, kindly follow the room. You can follow the moderators also. So whenever we are having amazing conversations and we bring wonderful people in, you can always be notified. Actually, I have a very, very, very embarrassing question. As a writer myself, I would want Sirna to say if I'm correct or wrong. There's a mute flying around. I mean, this is completely out of the moon sort of question, but I'm gonna ask. I've always said whenever I see an historian, I'm gonna ask: is it a myth that the Ethiopians actually fought the Italians with lions? I mean, this is for me. I mean, I'm sure you're laughing about that, but I've just been curious as a writer myself.
Me too. I'm laughing, but I want to know.
Yeah, it's a complete myth. I mean, if you um, um, if you open your eyes wider, yeah, there are lots and lots of myths that you get to hear about, these kinds of things. No, yeah, I've heard of it, but there is no account. There is no evidence that suggests it. And I know that kind of myth is coming from, praising Haile Selassie, Emperor Haile Selassie, whom they worship. I think um, there is even a religion that is named after Haile Selassie called Rastafarian. That, by the way, that Ras is Haile Selassie's first name, and Tafari was his second name before he was coronated. So they call they call it Rastafari to Rastafarian. He likes to keep animals. He keeps lots of wildlife, including lions, in the zoo. The zoo is in the palace, so that is where these kinds of myth is widely circulating. It's not only that, even the fact that they claim Ethiopia, the ruling families of Ethiopia are descendants of King Solomon of Israel by itself is unfounded. It's unfounded myth. They say, okay, once upon a time there was a queen of Ethiopia by the name of by the name of Sheba, and she happened to visit King Solomon of Israel, and then she slept with him, and she conceived a baby. That baby became Menelik the first, and he became the first king of Ethiopia. And Ethiopia never existed. They want to, mishmash things from here and there, and they claim that Ethiopia owned the Aksum kingdom, which has nothing to do with the current day Imperial Ethiopia whatsoever. And if there is anyone who is closer to the Aksumite civilization, it is the Tigray people who have been put under genocide at the moment. And they are the ones who created lots of civilization, including the alphabet, which again was invented by as part of the Aksumite civilization, and was closer to Tigray than to Ethiopia. Yeah, it's a myth, and it's one of many myths that you get to hear. They even have the audacity to say some of the nations in Imperial Ethiopia emerged out of water. And there are lots of myths that you get to hear. Yeah, let me land it there.
All right. Thank you very much. Like I said, it
Sirna
was a
Garda.
funny question, but I needed to know. Over to
Sorry,
you.
before Lauren Shaw, Mr. Sirna Garda, this might sound funny as well. How about battle elephants? Did they use those?
What? Battle elephants?
We've had a
Yes,
lot of
like
things, my brother.
the Indians and the Chinese and the Southeast Asians use battle elephants. So I don't know if that happened in Ethiopia as well.
There is no any evidence that shows elephants, to begin with, elephants were domesticated in that empire. I've never come across anything like that. The only domesticated elephant that I heard of were part of the Napier expedition. You can Google the Napier expedition. Maybe Dr. Gale is also on it.
Sirna, do you know why
Sirna,
I
do you know
asked that
why I
question? Because there is a historical narrative that the kingdom of Aksum actually used war elephants in AD 525. So I was just interested in knowing if that was a tradition that endured up until the war between the
Italian occupation?
Abyssinian state and the Italians, but well, it seems he did not. So
No,
that
no, no,
was
no.
why I asked.
Look, the Aksumite kingdom and the Aksumite civilization does not have anything to do with Ethiopia today. It doesn't. It is a great civilization of Africa. It extended all the way to part of Saudi Arabia, including Yemen and Eden, and it left massive footprints of African civilization. Not only that, even the Zagwe civilization, the Zagwe dynasty, which is again one of the nations in Ethiopia, which Ethiopians want to make a lot of fuss about, are the ones who built the Rockwin Church, which is recognized by UNESCO as one of the tangible world heritage. But even these people, at the moment, they are fighting for their own freedom. They are the Ago and the Ago nation. So yeah, there are lots of myths, but the only time elephants in in um, in in the recent history of Ethiopia from the 19th century is when the Napier expedition went to Abyssinia because the Abyssinian king by the name of Theodros asked Queen Elizabeth, sorry, it's not Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria, for firearms. And she wasn't interested. And luckily, that was before the Berlin Conference. So he was so angry, he was so agitated. He sent another delegate. Again, she turned a deaf ear, and finally he arrested all the Europeans, particularly those are the missionaries preaching the gospel in the area. He arrested them all, and just took them hostage. So the British government had to send expedition to Abyssinia to set the prisoners free. And that expedition was led by General Napier. And but the soldiers who were sent to Abyssinia were from British Indian battalion, about 40,000 soldiers, and they used elephants as part of transport, and which when they went to Abyssinia and they set the Europeans free, and they left the country. They had collaboration of Imperial Johannes. They gave all the firearms to Imperial Johannes as per their agreement, and they left uh, Abyssinia. So sometimes you even hear in the Ethiopia's narrative, "Oh, we defeated Britain. Even the British tried us and couldn't colonize us." But actually, British force under the Napier expedition only went there to set the prisoners free, and they left the country. And the Ethiopian emperor of that time, he didn't even shoot a bullet. He ran away, and he was killed by the forces of the Oromo army in the northern part, led by two widow women, and he was killed by these two women. But because they were so ashamed of saying the king was killed by the forces led by the Oromo women, they came up with this myth, this narrative of Tedros committed suicide. Yeah, I will stop there, and welcome Arale as well, and welcome Gail. Sorry, was I talking to myself, guys?
No. Thank you very much, Serena. I mean, you've been able to break it down, because obviously there are lots of mutes going on about most especially Ethiopia. So thank you for breaking that. Are, over to
Okay, thank you very much. There's a lot of information flying around, and my head is just swelling. This is like 20 textbooks, and we have a lot of historians here, from Garda to Dio to Gil to Arale, people that their area of expertise it's in this area. Before I go to the next person, call the next person, because we have a lot of erudite scholars, we have Velo here, Yoruba goddess here. Before I go to the next person, I want to ask Gail this question. What is the difference between the kingdom of Abyssinia and Imperial Ethiopia? Gail? Yeah.
Actually, and I can mention in this way by the opening of the thesis for the PhD of our Oromo scholar Marera Gudina, what he begins with is that the Abyssinian history is our past agony. So the Abyssinians, they are Tigray and Amharas. They were the ruling and the rest were periphery. So they are the people who built the empire. What I want to mention, how it is empire. By definition, the classical textbook empire are nations under one form of government. So actually, we are nations. I'm from Ogaden region, Somalia. My cousin Garda is from Oromia. Why I'm telling my cousin? Because we share culture, we share and language. The language is different, but it is Cushitic language. So actually, we are the southern people, and we have been conquered. Some people say Oromia was part of the empire. No, it has never been part of empire. I will tell you in the scramble of Africa. In 1882, the Battle of Ambubo, the Western Oromia was occupied. Arsi, which is part of Oromia, they were fighting with arcs, bows, and spears with the cramp guns, cannons, for 10 years, and they were occupied in 1886. In Harar, the Battle of Jalanko, it took place and they occupied in 1887. And as Garda said, Ogaden, the Somali region, was never part. It was given as a gift. Jigjiga in 1948, and the rest in 1954. Having said this, actually, I was I was sitting down. I want to add more to what Gada said. I completely agree with him, but I want to mention about the geopolitics. Before I mention the geopolitics, we were people having culture, language, civilization, but we did not have the guns. But we were fighting with arcs, bows, spears, like any other African. I want to mention here, in 1842, the Oromo language was written, and the gospel has been translated into Latin script, written in Oromo language. And this is in the Museum of Berlin. And the man who wrote this is Jonan Ledwin. The first Oromo dictionary, do you know? We were not savages. We were very civilized people. The first Oromo dictionary and grammar was in 1844, and it was written about it by Karl. He's another German. The first printing in Afan Oromo in Germany was in 1846 in a newspaper. So there was other Oromo scripts, and we have Somalis, many scripts in that period. In geopolitics, what was happening? The Anglo-Egyptian, which was occupying Egypt and Sudan, they want to link the train that starts from Cairo to Cape Town. So their interest is to rule all this area. The France, they want to connect Djibouti with West Africa. Italy, they want to expand. Russia, because of Orthodox religion, they were helping Menelik. France, they gave guns so that and some of the land, as mentioned by Garda, so that the British will not have the opportunity to connect from Cairo to South Africa. The Russians, they were helping for religion, the Tsar at that time. Italy, they don't want the British to succeed. So what happened? In the museum in Finfinne, Finfinne is Addis Ababa, by the way. It is an Oromia land. In Finfinne Museum, there is 130 cannon, which is named the Kram gun. It was the most sophisticated cannons in that period. The rifles are there, 300,000 rifles they supplied, but the samples are there. So this is how they subdued it and conquered our lands. Actually, when the counselor in Cairo, he visited Menelik at that time, I am very happy that he mentioned all the treaties. My friend Renner wrote, he visited Menelik, and he said, what do you want? I want to understand, what do you want? He said, I want all of Sudan, Uganda, Kismayo in southern Somalia, and Kenya and Azla. The Battle of Adwa made him greedy, Menelik, and he tried to conquer as much land as possible. And he took part in the scramble of Africa. I want to mention again, the population of Oromia was brought half. I want to mention the atrocities that has been done during that period. The breasts of Oromo ladies were cut, and Haile Selassie in 1956 in Mahatra, which I have got the documents from the British archives, he cut the breasts of Somali ladies. We were sharing the agony and the empire. This empire, up to now, it is based on marginalization, alienation. It is the worst kind of racists. Actually, I want to mention before I close, the elements they have used it is one of the doctrine Haile Selassie applied. Actually, I'm sorry to go out of the topic because it is Menelik and the scramble, but for you to understand what they have done, actually they used the language, Amharic language, to assimilate the other people. And actually, Bankhurst, who is one of the historians for the empire, actually he is mentioning that the assimilation policy that envisioned the cultural rearrangement in which the conquerors raised the conquered, the southern people, to their own level, as if we are subhuman, and the latter people should have to abandon their customs, social organization, and adopt the language and, if possible, the religion of the conquerors. What happened in Tedda doctrine, which is applied up to now, not up to now, just before 1991, the schools should have to be taught in Amharic. The gospel, the church, should be preached in Amharic, even not with the other languages. Courts of law should be done in Amharic. Citizenship tests should be done in Amharic. And this was the cultural assimilation, and they used this as economic exploitation. So I conclude the
Godless slaves, fuck Oromo.
actually the make I am not Oromo. I am from Somali, Ogaden region. So actually, the end of this empire is very, very near. And thank
I was actually going to give you a warning, but the Mecca beat me. I was nearly going to say that before this guy named the
Uh,
Mecca came in.
Sirna,
Yeah.
I've got a question for you, or for Arali, or for your third friend left. Oh, Gelly is here. Okay, so Menelik's mother, Emperor Menelik, his mother was an Oromo woman, right? If I have my history right, his mother was of Oromo Shewa Oromo ancestry. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Okay. So, and of course, we are all aware of the part he played in Ethiopian history, the very crucial part he played, and in the expansion of the empire, the signing of the treaties, and all that. Do you feel, in a way, that the role he played, because now we know that Abiy Ahmed has gone to the war front, and that's what there was a press release a few days ago. He said he was in Afar, you know, recapturing towns, and anyway, that was what they said. Do you think there are any parallels in Abiy Ahmed and Emperor Menelik, being that, I don't know, maybe Abiy feels that he wants to stamp his name in Ethiopian history as a defender of the state, and an unforgettable character, someone who would be remembered in Ethiopia for being the one who stood up and played this very crucial role in saving Ethiopia as an entity, and also being, maybe, partly due to the mixed heritage that both Abiy and Emperor Menelik has, but being largely playing the role of guardians of the state, or probably even expansion of the state as well, if possible. So, do you think there are any parallels between both characters? And it would be interesting to hear your view on both of them, or um, on especially, since the Oromos of Ethiopia have always, ever since Abiy came into power, a huge proportion of the Oromos have seen his ascension as a, opportunity, or, a chance for them to get a little bit of, space to maneuver within the Ethiopian polity. But now, Abiy seems to be the number one defender of the Ethiopian state. So can you please tell us a little bit what's going on there?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, Abiy Ahmed is not new to the power. He joined the TPLF. Sorry. Well,
Your network is not that good. I don't know what's wrong. Sina, Garda, maybe Arali should answer that question.
can you hear me now?
Okay, maybe Arali should also answer the question.
Ariel, we can hear him,
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh,
no problem.
but
yeah.
I think someone is
Yeah, I think
unmuted. So there.
someone.
Can I speak?
Yeah. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I'll go after Arali if Arali wants to say something.
Okay, Arali is going.
Okay, thank you very much, Dayo. Your question was you making parallel between Abiy and Menelik, and my answer is they are not parallel. No, they are not parallel. During the Menelik time, there was an Oromo guy who was called Rasdasha Govana. He was used as a tool by Menelik to capture the Oromo land as an instrument. So in the case of Abiy, he joined EPDRF, and his group was the Prisoners of War of Eritreans, and then the TPLF formed party. This OPDO group, Abiy was actually young. He was not a prisoner of war, but other Oromo were prisoners of war. So they were formed as a party called OPDO, Oromo People's Democratic Party, because the TPLF in 1991, when they want to enter Pimpine or Addis Ababa, it was unacceptable to the people to enter in the name of TPLF. So they have to form EPDRF. EPDRF, that's to say, composed of the Tigray, Amara, a man called Tamrat Lanye, and Oromo OPDO, and then later also they joined Southern people. So the guy was uh, started his career in that form, and then he was in the EPDRF for a long time, and then there was Oromo uprising, Cairo. He was nothing to do with the Cairo uprising that removed the EPDRF power in Addis Ababa, and then by accident he became, Prime Minister of Ethiopia. Actually, when the uprising era started, the anticipation of the Oromo was that he will support the cause of the Oromo, but he sidelined Oromo and he supported the Oromo elites. So that's why I'm saying he is similar to Ras Dasha Govana. Ras Dasha Govana was also against the Oromo people, and he supported the Amara elites and the Menelik. So my answer is they are not similar. This man is just a tool for the Amara elites, and they are using him, and he has not the support of the Oromo, and the Amara elites are using him as a ladder uh, to reimpose the old order Ethiopian system, like Haile Selassie and the Mengistu, and the domination of the Amara elites or the Amara imperial system. That is my answer to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Arali.
To add, sorry, can I add
Okay.
to
You
what
can add
Arali
your.
said?
Okay, I just.
Yeah. Yeah, I think O'Reilly put it beautifully. But first of all, we need to understand that this man by the name of Abiy Ahmed he is he hasn't got any principle, to be absolutely honest. He has cheated in terms of his academic performance in many of his speeches. He plagiarizes lots of things, but he made it to become a prime minister. But I really want to speak to how he became prime minister. Um, you know, he was a soldier, and he joined, he served this regime for more than 30 years. And not only as a foot soldier, also as a spy. He used to be called the right hand man, El Zedawi, the head of the TPLF, whom Abiy Ahmed is fighting today. Uh, but people sometimes try to play that card. I'll get back to that. Um, the way he got elected was while serving as a spy. He was responsible for the killing and kidnapping of many of the Oromo freedom fighters and their families, but also he was in charge. He was the head of the intelligence service. Um, he would ban electronic media. He was known for all that. So during this process, while serving the regime as a spy, as intelligence officers, and as a minister, um, he came to learn the Oromo vocabularies, the Oromo language. I mean, I'm not suggesting different languages, but he came to he came to internalize or kind of immerse himself in the languages that the Oromo freedom fighters use. Okay, so when the Oromo protest between sorry, between 2014 and 2018, there was a widespread Oromo protest, public mass protest, which was led by the youth wing of the Oromo Liberation Army called Kero. Abiy started to use those vocabularies to pretend he's someone who cares for the Oromo. So because of that, he gained popularity, and the EPRDF, the ruling party at that time, by the way, the prime minister, the then prime minister, Hailemariam Desalegn, resigned, and as soon as he resigned, by the way, before he resigned, they you know, all the prisoners, all of whom are back in prison now, and the government was trying to calm the Oromo protests down. And to do that is to put some charge, which take the Oromo protests down. The EPRDF said, we want to transform, we want to change. So we need someone who could lead this change. And they elected Abiy Ahmed. They appointed Abiy Ahmed to become a prime minister. But the same day he sworn in, he started to praise Imperial. And for the first time, he's, to kind of ended up killing the Oromo, the very young Oromo people who got him to the office. He started attacking them, including
Sinagada, are you there? Sinagada? Mr. Dio?
Yeah.
I think he has an issue with his
Yes.
network.
You can just
Thank
continue.
Okay, let's quickly reset the room. Thank you once again. This is Think Yoruba First Clubhouse Room. In this platform, we give the platforms for hardcore ethnic nationalists, self-determination fighters, freedom fighters. We give indigenous people the platform to discuss what's actually there are different problems, and we are trying to set the record straight. We are trying to understand the problem of Africa. We are trying to understand the problem of indigenous people and across Africa. And today, we are in Ethiopia and we are trying to unravel what is actually going on there. There must always be an historical reasons, the historical basis in which where we have why we have conflicts, and we are trying to understand what is Ethiopia. Ethiopia is so much glorified in the world of reggae music, is so much glorified in the books of Pan Africanists, is so much glorified in the people in our history books. But many of us don't actually understand what Ethiopia stands for. That Ethiopia is not what they want us to believe it is, and we are here to actually know why Ethiopia is what it is. Today with us we have several intellectuals from that part of the world, people like Sina Garda, we have Dr. Gile, we have Arale, we have Dayo, we have Famobaba, we have Olu, and we have Sam here. So we will continue, and I would before handing over to Arale or Dayo to also continue, I have some inference to make. From what has been said so far, so good. Ethiopia is an artificial construct. It's a country built by imperialism of an African ethnic group on another African ethnic group. So by the time that is why many of us try to raise the alarm that we can both be blacks, we can all both be brown, but we can also colonize each other. It is real. Ethiopia was built on. I want to give the term it doesn't exist, but I'm going to use it. The Amarification of Ethiopia. It's just an ethnic group, just the Amara, trying to build an empire where it promotes its own civilization, its own language, its own ethnic identity higher than the rest of the country. And that is the fact. That was what has happened in Ethiopia, where, because I remember vividly in history, after the brutal takeover of Oromia country by Emperor Menelik, the Oromia language was expunged, the Oromia's culture was silenced, the thousands to millions of Oromians people from Oromia were killed, and because they resisted and fought valiantly for their freedom, they became third-class citizens in their country. And according to what Sinagada said, ethnic nationalities like the Waletha, the Afa, the Oromo, the Somali, their sovereignty was taken away from them via war, via colonial gifting, via colonial purchases, and was given to the Amara people, in which they were able to build an empire. So the Ethiopia that we see is an empire that only reflects the Amara identity, the Amara civilization. So the current war going on in Ethiopia, civil war, the OLA, the TDF, different wars going on in Ethiopia is a pushback by the indigenous people to get back their sovereignty. It's a brutal war of trying to correct the countless decades and years of neglect, of wickedness, of bloodshed, of of chaos. And this is what Ethiopia is all about. Ethiopia is not what they try to romanticize in the Bible. Ethiopia is not what they try to tell us, what they try to preach. It's just like any empire that was built on the blood of innocent and indigenous people. We don't pray for war. We don't walk to war. We hope and pray that peace comes to motherland Africa and all indigenous people get back their sovereignty. Once again, this is Think Yoruba First. Kindly click on the green icon and follow us so that we can continue to hold and have fantastic discussions like this. What we are having today is not different from TED Talks or a symposium where we have intellectuals, PhDs, historians, scholars in their chosen field of endeavors, in the different chosen fields, most especially in anthropology, in history, in sociology, in political science, people who have seen the reality, people who have who have been persecuted, sharing their story, and they still believe freedom is real. This is the as we Yorubas, as we are listening to this, we also need to learn from the people of Oromia, the people of Ogaden in Somalia, the Tingra people. We need to learn. It is not for us to fantasize, we are not here to romanticize history. We are here to actually share and drink pure and distilled water from the cup of experience of people like Sinagada, like Arale, like Gil, and others. Once again, you're welcome to Think Yoruba First. I'll be handing over and allow that, because Mr. Dayo is doing a good job to continue to engage the intellectual we have. No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's the way it's supposed to be, and it's also good to always also listen. And I'm listening good, and I'm listening well. The only question I want to my ask our people from East Africa is this: our guests from East Africa is uh, Italy. If Ethiopia was part of those who balkanized Imperial Ethiopia under Menelik II, Menelik I, was part of those who balkanized Africa in the 1884 Berlin West African Conference. Then why did Italy in the first place try to colonize Ethiopia on two different occasions? Firstly, in the 19th century, then secondly, with Mussolini. What went wrong? If Ethiopia was a friend to the destruction of Africa, if the Amara elite, the Amara aristocrats, the Amara monarchy were cahoots in the destruction of in the balkanization of Africa, why did Italy was hell bent? Why was Italy hell bent on taking over Ethiopia? Please, is it possible for our brothers to give responses to that? Sinagada, Gil, Arale, who's going to answer the question, please?
Yeah, I don't, my signal is really terrible. I'm in a different country, but well, yeah. Let me try to address that question and begin from where I stopped earlier about Abiy Ahmed versus Imperial Menelik. Uh, what Abiy Ahmed is trying to do now, regardless of the blood of young Oromo men and women, he walked on his way to his office. He is trying to take Ethiopia back to the imperial period or the feudal period. That's why they keep saying his activists and him in all his speeches, they say Ethiopia ትልቅ ነበረች ትልቅም ትሆናለች, which he says in Amharic, which means Ethiopia was great and it will regain its greatness again. And by that, they're referring to the Ethiopia before 1974, the Ethiopia of feudalism, the Ethiopia of where the Oromo culture, the Ogaden culture, and the identity of other peoples were banned, the very Ethiopia that has been imposed on the Oromo and the Walaita, Kafa, and all the nations in Empire Ethiopia. That is what they are campaigning for at the moment. And second, Dayo, you mentioned Abiy Ahmed is now trying to, he's joined the battlefront, according to what he's saying, and forget about the political or military implication of that. But you know what? Now there is a military operation. The operation that they're running at the moment is called Operation Minilik. It is called Operation Minilik. So that is what that shows the extent to which these guys could go. Before my signal goes down again, let me make this point. Earlier, you might have heard a person, a man, a gentleman, came to the stage and he said abusive words about the Oromo, which is typical of the way the Amhara see themselves. And I'm just going to say this as a symbol of warning for the moderators. You might receive lots of abusive remarks and for holding this conversation because the Amhara fascist Ethiopianist group think um, Ethiopia is affected if the Oromo culture, the Ogaden culture, the other nations' culture is treated equally as the Amhara's culture. And what they say now is if anybody speaks of the independence of the Oromia, or independence of Ogaden, regaining the independence of these countries, you become the number one enemy of the Amhara group. If you say anything negative, or if you say the crimes, if you speak of the crimes that Imperial Melech and Haile Selassie and Abiy Ahmed have been perpetrating against the Oromo, against the Tagara and other nations, uh, they say, well, you are our enemy. And that's the very reason why, by the way, the Amhara militia, the Amhara the Amhara soldiers, special forces, joined in the fight against against Tigray. When Abiy Ahmed declared war in Tigray, the Amhara, the ones who joined both formal and informal army of the Amhara regional forces, invaded Tigray, and now paying the price. Why would they do that? Because they think there is no difference. They are selected, God elected group of people who are destined to rule over Ethiopia and to keep Ethiopia. And unfortunately, that Ethiopia is disintegrating right in front of them. And that is why they kind of show their hostility in public towards any independence movement. And they would call you guys, if you give them the chance, they tell you, you are terrorists, you are this, you are that, you are working to dismantle Ethiopia, which is dismantling itself. I want to put that into context of how the liberation movements up and down Africa are perceived by the African governments. Whatever we see in Empire Ethiopia is somehow reflective of the way the right to independence is perceived by African dictators. I'm saying this because almost all the countries in Africa today were structured, or the boundaries were
Okay, I think we lost him. We lost him again.
yeah, I'll get back to that point later when I get better signal.
Okay. No problem. I think we have to move to other moderators. And the next moderator is my brother Vela. Vela, please kindly chip in one or two things. And let's make it snappy because
Okay.
we've spent 1 hour, 22 minutes. And we only have maybe 1 hour plus to spend on the platform, and we want it to be so rich and deeply intellectual. So, my brother Velo, take it over from here. 5 minutes.
All right. I might not even speak that much, sir, because I really don't know much of their history. But most of what I know is what I've been able to learn, even from him, Sina, Sina Garda. I call him Kajiucha before anyway. This one is hard to pronounce for me. Kajiucha is better for me. So I know that from him. But one thing I would All right, maybe you should mute a little bit. Is echoing, please? Okay, thank you, sir. So the thing I would just say is that it's really interesting that Are you I didn't know this room was scheduled and you opened this room. Earlier, a lady was asking me about if we even talk about what is happening in Ethiopia and everything. So I'm glad that your room, this room title came at the right time. It was just some few minutes before this room was opened, and this is really helping a lot of people, even some people outside the shores of Ethiopia, because right now I'm getting to understand that the Amara culture was forced on the others to create a place called Ethiopia. If I'm right, but if that is not the statement, maybe Kajiucha can correct me. And sincerely, as he said, we need to be ready for that battle, because I hear that I know a lot of stages like this. There's this conflict around everybody from a different ethnicity. But one of the major things that really interests me is the newfound stories that I get to hear nowadays, different from the painted history that have been passed down to us down along the line of our lives. But it's interesting to have this conversation, and Are, it's a wonderful thing. And thank you, Kajucha, too, for being here, and the other person, Gele. Thank you for being here. I don't have much to say because I don't know much of the history yet. I've not read to that extent. So
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my brother. Udodumare will continue to bless you and bless all of us. My brother Olu, take it from here. 5 minutes.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ari, for giving me this platform. Well, for me, I'll say I've really learned a lot, and from what the last speaker said, I could I was able to draw similarities between what is happening in Ethiopia and what is also happening in the geographical expression called Nigeria. So I think for us, it's really it's a rich history, especially as regards to what's happening to them, and we can actually learn from them because we seems to face the same existential threat from similar adversary, but in different form. So, and I think it's more of, especially for those that still don't believe in what's happening in Nigeria. I I wish some of them are here so they will know that okay, that some of us are like really agitating for self-determination. That's we're not just saying it out of emotions or out of the blues, but we are saying it based on what we believe it's right for us, or based on what we believe is best for our people. And also, when they also look at what is happening in a place like Ethiopia, then they will know that um, what we are saying is not just fantasy, but it's just that we are trying to be more proactive so that our own situation do not get to that level of what is happening in Ethiopia. Though it has started happening even within the fraudulent contraption called Nigeria, but then we don't want it to really degenerate further, further, and it's just best that we settle everything amicably so that everybody can revert to the status quo before the British thugs invaded our privacy. Thanks so much. I've really learned, and I'm like also learning because I barely know anything about Ethiopia before now, because I used to think it's one homogeneous country. I don't know that it's also based on fraud, just like how Nigeria is also established on fraud. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much. We'll be going to my brother Nash. He has been on stage right since we started. I'm coming, Arale. I'm coming, my brother. I'll be back. I'm coming to you. Nash, take it from here. 5 minutes.
Yeah, hello everyone. It's good to be here. I thank everybody in the group. But I'm just here to learn. So I'll leave my mic for another person to speak. Thank you.
No problem. That's good. The greatest people are people who listen and learn. I pray to also be a learner and to learn all my life. Thank you very much, Nas. We are going to the next person. I think I have to go to my wonderful sister, Uji, my Oromian nationalist. Oji, I think I saw the Turkish flag on your stuff. I think the Turkish, if you want to say good morning, they say nonsense. Oji, say something about what we're talking about. Imperial Ethiopia and the balkanization of Africa. Oji, are you there? Is it Oji? Did I pronounce it well?
It's
Uruchi.
yeah.
Mm.
Over to you. Okay. 5 minutes, Oji. Okay.
Yeah, I just came up, my brother, to say we really appreciate our Yoruba brothers and sisters to invite us on stage and allow us to educate on the real history. Um, and yeah, I'll just leave it to the scholars. They've basically explained everything: Gele, Arale, Sirna, Gada. So I just wanted to give my thanks and appreciation for allowing this space.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. Once again, I would also call on Arale. You're one of our guests. You have something to say?
Yes, thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, just I would like to make a small comment comparing Nigeria and the Ethiopian Empire. Uh, you see, I read from Wolo Soyinka, the Nobel Peace literature of Nigeria, who won this Nobel literature in 1986, saying that the only thing that link uh, Nigerian different regions is the English language. He was he was a complaining, how Nigeria political system is dysfunctional. But when coming to Ethiopia, could you imagine we are worse than Nigeria, because in your case at least you have you have another foreign language, English language, which many even the oppressed nations in Nigeria can at least have their become educated, like the Igbo and the other Nigerians. They are very educated. You can get people who are PhD holders, double master degree, and on. In our case, when I was in high school in my hometown in Jijiga, if I get all subjects A plus, A plus, A plus, uh, A minus, but if I fail in Amharic language, I was not allowed to enter to Addis Ababa University. All students. So you can see from that how the system was culturally very discrimination. How the people were, oppressed, because for them, Amharic language was a tool for subjugation and denying the right of the people to be educated. So many Somali students, they were denied to enter to the university because of that. Very few, probably some who live in Diridawa and the other area. So just I would like to, I'm citing language was like the Afrikaners in South Africa, the Amharic language, how the South Africans use the on South African people, how they use it as a tool of oppression. So we have suffered like that. I'm not talking about the hard power, the military power, how our country was a military garrison uh, up to now. I'm talking about the cultural aspects uh, that they were using and denying our right. And for the Oromo, I think I have told you the other day, uh, during the Haile Selassie time, Afan Oromo was denied to be broadcast in Radio Addis Ababa. It was denied, and the Oromo come to Somalia, and Radio Mogadishu was the first radio to broadcast Afan Oromo. Imagine a population of about 25 million, and who live in Addis Ababa area, and who produce the main cash crop in Ethiopia, which is coffee. They were denied to their language to be broadcast in the in radio Addis Ababa, and then their language was also became illegal to be written. Uh, it was started during the military regime to be written in Ethiopian alphabet called Fidel. They didn't allow to write in Kobe or Latin. So this is what we had. This kind of problem for a long time. So just I was making, comparative. I was making comparing and contrasting Nigeria and Ethiopia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Arali. I think that was very, very clear. What were the state policy in Ethiopia was the intentional destruction, the cultural genocide, the racial genocide, civilization genocide was perpetrated against other indigenous ethnic nationality, and one ethnic nationality was brought up to become supreme compared to other ethnic nationality in order to create the Ethiopia that we currently know. The same thing is currently happening in Nigeria anyway. After the British left, the former president of Nigeria called Olusegun Obasanjo, while he was giving a speech address in a particular conference, he said Nigeria is now facing another form of colonization, which was called Fulanization agenda, in order to turn Nigeria into a Fulani empire, just the way the Arab tried to turn Sudan into an Arab empire, the way the people of Amara were able to turn Ethiopia into a Amharic empire, because they actually succeeded by killing almost the half of the population of Oromo, killing 80% of the population of Waleta, seizing, grabbing lands from the people of Somalia, also balkanizing the Alpha nation, and they did all sorts of things left and right, in order to create the Ethiopia that we know. It's unfortunate. It's really fortunate. It's unfortunate, and I agree with Dr. Arali that at least we can still speak our language, no matter how small the language is. Nobody is trying to wipe out our language, but that is not the case anymore. And we now have something that is very very strange in Nigeria
No,
currently,
sorry,
Dr. Arali.
sorry, sorry, just a quick one. I think it's also happening in Nigeria as well, because if you go to most northern states, so most of these states that Hausa has now become the lingua franca. The original language is not Hausa. If you go to a place like Kaduna, for example, 200 years ago, nobody speaks Hausa in Kaduna before Usman Dan Fodo's jihad. So the people of Kaduna, in fact, there are more than 30 different ethnic groups in Kaduna. The same thing with Jos, and the same thing even in Kebbi State. You have the Zulus and all of those people. So 200 years ago, these people do not speak Hausa. So it's only that it has not extended southwards. But in Nasarawa, the same thing too with places like Nasarawa, places like Niger State, like
Abuja.
all these places. So the same thing too. The same thing is happening in Nigeria. Only that maybe the rate at which it is happening in Ethiopia is faster than the rate at which it is happening in Nigeria. That's just the truth. And again, it seems that the people in Ethiopia, they use force, full scale force to achieve their aim. But also in Nigeria too, almost the same thing is also happening as well. And I just say that I should like add that to to this
I
conversation.
agree.
That's
I
the same.
agree. I agree. I
Can I
agree with
add
you.
something too, Are?
Yes, yes.
Sorry, I'm actually on the road, but I mean language, right? It always gets my attention. Olu Daniel said something that it has not started in the south. I mean, bro, have you been to the so-called Muritala Mohammed Airport of late? I mean, the Nigerian Ports Authority, the Nigerian Custom, the Nigerian Immigration Office. I mean, you get to these places, bro. It's like Rankadede is like, how you doing everywhere. I mean, these are things that we really need to be concerned about. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. Okay.
No, don't get me wrong. I didn't say that. Yes, I understand that in places like Apapa Port, all our strategic assets is manned by foreigners. I understand that. But what I'm just trying to say, like in a broader context, that okay, like places like Nasarawa State, I mean the area that you call Nasarawa State today, or the area that you call Niger State today, even Kaduna, the area that you call Kaduna today, 200 years ago, nobody speaks Hausa there. They speak their various languages. But today, most of those languages have gone into extinction because of the dominance of one language. Like they try to like assimilate them. And the same thing is, and the only difference with Ethiopia and Nigeria is that it has not extended to the coast, and that is also part of the grand plan, and that was why Obasanjo had to like voice out, just what according to what Are said earlier, has to voice out that if this thing is not addressed, then the same thing that happened to the people in Kaduna, Niger, even some people in Kebbi, it will also happen to us because this thing has been going on. It didn't start today. It started since 200 years ago, and these people are the people that we are dealing with. They are very patient, and I mean, there are people that it doesn't matter how long it takes them, but it's an ideology that they believe has to be fulfilled, even though if it takes them 10 centuries, they have to, like, they will continue. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I agree with you that.
Thank you very much. And I think from what our intellectuals have submitted, I can infer something. For there to be a Nigeria, some ethnic groups need to be assimilated and exterminated. For there to be an Ethiopia, some ethnic groups needs to be assimilated and exterminated. For there to for these colonial countries constructs that we call countries in Africa to survive, these ethnic groups needs to be some of these ethnic groups need to surrender their civilization, surrender their culture, surrender their identity, and be exterminated. We shouldn't forget that some group of jokers a few months ago came into this platform in their platform and they were advocating that a kind of an gutter and ghetto English called pidgin English should be the lingua franca of the entire Nigeria. And they were even telling us to throw away our language. They want us to throw away our culture. They want us to throw away our civilization in order to build Nigeria. And then you start asking yourself, why should we destroy our Yorubaness to preserve a colonial project that has killed millions of our people, that has taken away our resources, and that has made us third class citizens in our lands? I think it's the same problem across Africa. Why? Because when you look at what the Oromo people are talking about, you listen to them, you are almost in tears. And everybody thought Ethiopia was just an El Dorado. Especially when you love reggae and you listen to Rastafari, yeah, man. Like, so this is going on in this kind of thing, in this kind of place. You're shocked that there's a genocide wiping out of people. I hope someday modern Africa gets it right. Like Mr. Olu
Yeah,
wants to say
let me
something.
just quickly add that the quest for this self-determination is not even inspired by lack of infrastructure. It's deeper than that. If it's by infrastructure, that okay, because some people will say, oh, is it because of bad governance? Is it because we don't have the basic necessity of life? No, even if Nigeria were to be a very developed country, we will still agitate for self-determination because this has to do with our identity. This has to do with our history, our culture that that has existed for thousands of years. So even if Nigeria happens to be the most developed country on earth, we will still agitate. Why do you think the Scottish people are still agitating for their own independent state, or some European countries are still agitating? Are you saying that Monaco is a ghetto? Are you saying that the Catalan part of Spain? Are you saying that part is the Barcelona area? Are you saying it's ghetto? No, because because immediately your identity is erased, then that's the end of you. And just like I said earlier, that what one Nigeria means is that one Nigeria in the context of maybe assimilation means that okay, everybody has to like collapse their, like just like you have in mathematics, that substitution by elimination. So that means we have to like collapse our own respective identities for one dominant identity. That's not going to be possible. That is not, because we don't. The reason why, with all due respect to Black Americans in America, the reason why they are having issues is because of identity crisis. Because immediately you lose that, then you've lost your persona, you've lost your humanity. Because if you look at the Japanese people, for example, I think they believe in is it kage something, is that's what informs their philosophy. That is what informs how they interact, in fact, their way of life, the totality of their well-being. So in Yoruba too, we have what we call the Omoluabi philosophy. That is what informs what we do, how we relate with people, how because it's embedded in honesty, hard work, love, and all of that, which is totally alien to the Nigeria. In fact, Nigeria does not even have any identity to even start with. So this thing is deeper. Like, I think we Africans, we don't really understand and appreciate our identity, and it's so funny that the people that are even clamoring, I mean the Western powers that came to like distort our history, they are even the ones that even appreciate that identity. They don't joke with it. Why do you think that? Why do you think Europe, that is less than a third of Africa, has 54 states, and Africa, that is times three of Europe, has the same number of states? So because most of those 95, almost 90% of Europe is based on ethnic nations. So why can't we have the same in Nigeria? I mean, in Africa. So because these people appreciate the importance of your ethnic have your ethnic identity, because it has to do with your ideology, it has to do with the political system you adopt, it has to also do with the economic system you adopt. So I should just chip that in.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much for that fantastic submission. I think we need to go to my brother Sam. Sam, do you have any contribution?
Thank you, everyone. Just a couple of things which I want to spare. One is you raise a very interesting question, and when I came here to this room, I was trying to know or to see points in regard to the role of Ethiopia in Berlin Conference and afterwards. And also you mentioned you stated a very interesting question, which you said why did they try, Europeans try to colonize Ethiopia into occasions, and then it seems like for me you said this question because there might be some guys who claim that Ethiopia was also participated in partition of Africa. I want to see, I want to know if there is someone with such claim providing historical evidences that Ethiopia was participated in that, which really would be very helpful for me, because I never came across with such kind of resources in my history studies. That's one of the things that I want to say. Next to that, RLA was saying that Amharic was a compulsory subject in general school examination, living examination. Well, in my experience, it was not Amharic. It was English and mathematics. So you need to have at least not F grade in neither of them to join higher education within Ethiopia. Not Amharic. But it's also better for me if RLA also provide such kind of credible evidence in such kind of stuff. All in all, what I want to say is, I know there are some problems within Ethiopia as a state. Um, I can't deny that this imperial Ethiopia's unjust towards nation and nationalities within Ethiopia. And as a result, the 1974 revolution, one of the causes for the revolution was quest for right of nations and nationalities, which self-determination and also it reaches that of secession. And as we know, in 1974, the monarchical regime was collapsed and a new military regime was established. And also, since the military regime didn't address all the those sensitive questions with regard to nation state and also democracy in particular, it also came to fail in 1991, and from that onwards, we have a federalist state structure, which promotes, equality of nation and nationalities, constitutionally gives them this kind of constitutional right to self-determination that leads to secession. So we came in this kind of situation, and it's better for everyone. Just my personal recommendation to look or to make your own reference before jumping in and make or drawing a conclusion, because it's a kind of diverse and different thing when you came when you make your own research in regard to history of Ethiopian empire in general. Let me give you one simple example. The Oromos, they were became part of Ethiopian empire in the 16th century. In the 17th century, they were part of they were kings, Oromo kings and kingmakers within Ethiopian empire, which I mean when you say Ethiopian empire, the Christian Highland Ethiopian empire. Then if you want to politicize history, you can use the selective approach and pick Minilik's expansion or conquest to the southern Oromo area. But who is Oromo? Who is Minilik? His grandfather is an Oromo. His successor, which is his son, his son-in-law, his grandson, Iyasu, he is Wollo Oromo. Then we have Haile Selassie, who was the last emperor of Christian, this imperial Ethiopia. His mom, her name is Fatima Ali Gunjo. She is an Oromo. What I want to say is, the Oromos were part of establishing this big Ethiopian empire. Anyway, to conclude, it's better to make our own research because we have ample of researched materials, independently researched materials, before we make such kind of conclusion. Because then we may not end up in a kind of good situation that takes us forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. This is a different perspective entirely. A different perspective. Is Sinagada here? Oh my God, he's not here. Thank God we have Arale and Gil. And I'm going to start from Arale.
Yeah, thank you.
Arale, your name was mentioned, and Sam came for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Arale, kindly respond to Sam.
Yeah, very much. I would also to thank Sam. Just I would like to reply to him when he was mentioning about the high school leaving examination. I think there is a generational gap between him and me. Probably he had lived during the Mengistu time, Mengistu Haile Mariam time, and I had lived during the Haile Selassie time. So during my time, Amharic language was pivotal to enter to university. It was one of the conditions. So that's the I think if he does not know, I would like to tell him that it was very pivotal. And it's not only that. I mean, Amharic language is used as an instrument to oppress. It was a kind of cultural genocide in my region. Imagine 99.9% of the people who does not speak Amharic language, and then They brought some administration from the Ethiopian highland and administrating like the colonial powers, some black people who speak in their language, writing their own language, and people may not understand in the court and every place in the hospital. I mean, this was very disgusting. This is actually what was happening to us until the EPDR come into power and they allow Somali language to be practiced in our region. But now Abiy government want to change that, and he want to make re-Amharization and to make the country unitary system. So just I would like to, and also I would like to make a comment. What Ola Nigeria, what was his name? Ola. He was talking about, he comparing about Japan and Africa. Uh, so just I would like to cite a book written by Ali Mazuri, The Africanist, The Triple Heritage, saying that Japanese, they they didn't westernize it, but they were modernized it because they retained their own identity, and that's why Japan uh, had developed compared to Africa. Their identity was there always, has had been always there. But in case of Africa, they were completely westernized. So in our case in Africa, in many African countries, there was a kind of complete westernization. If you go to the West Africa, their language is totally died. But in our Horn of Africa, for example, in the case of the Ethiopian Empire, the Amara elites also, they want to destroy our own identity and to impose Amara cultural domination, whether it's Oromo or Sidamos and others. So that's why Ethiopia, which claims that it exists 3,000 years, although I don't believe that assumption. It was Ethiopia empire is only 130 years old. Even if it's 130 years, why Ethiopia had not developed? Why it remained one of the least developed countries? The answer is because majority people in Ethiopia were oppressed, their rights were denied, whether it's political, economic, social, and why this country has been at war for a long time up to today in the 21st century, in the last days of the 2021. Thank you very much.
Arale, I thank you for that comprehensive response. Maybe Gil will answer this because Sam also asked a very, very important question. Sam said that many Oromo participated in the expansionist agenda of Menelik. Is that true?
Can I respond to that?
Yes, yes. Oh, whoa, my
And
sister, welcome. Salam, salam,
yes,
salam.
my name is Makia. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Arale, both of you. I appreciate you for speaking. I came here to listen, so I don't have my research ready to go, but I do have a lived experience. And yes, some Oromos did benefit and continue to benefit from the empire. That doesn't mean we weren't hurt. Just because they benefited, the masses weren't hurt. I'm from southern Oromia, and I grew up, I was young when Mengistu fell and the Ihadic government took over, and I've gone through schooling with that, and so I don't have a memory of Haile Selassie's regime, and I wouldn't say I was mature enough to understand Mengistu, but what I do understand was my region was disenfranchised. My people couldn't go to court and represent themselves without an Amharic translator. And most of us did not speak Afan Amara, Amharic language. And so there was a complete disenfranchisement, and the schools were placed in cities where the majority spoke Amharic. Now, are they Amara? No. Many of them are Oromo. However, they benefited from a system, and because they spoke the language, they got advantage. Now, my beef is not with Amara people. They're fine. They were victims of the system themselves. However, my beef is with a system that really oppressed Oromo people and other ethnicities in that system. We didn't participate. If you didn't comply with the standard of Amharic and the state religion, then you were disadvantaged. And what we wanted, at least from my experience, is that equal treatment under the law for all of us, all ethnicities and nations and nationalities are respected, our languages are respected, and we can go to court, we can work, and we wouldn't be disenfranchised. My in the town I grew up, there was a huge disparity. The education was, even in the cities where I grew up, there was no infrastructure, there was no investment, no care for the people that lived there. And so yes, in fact, Haile Selassie's grandfather himself is said to be Oromo, and if you dig deeper, you see that he's Oromo. But that doesn't mean he benefited Oromo people. We don't care what your ethnicity is when you're in a leadership. We care that you benefit the people. The current prime minister is Oromo, and he is one that's killing us and trying to take us back where we left. We don't want to go back to the space where we needed a translator in a court and hospitals. So it's not so much about Oromo participating in the government, in the empire. It's about the masses of Oromo who get disenfranchised and displaced, displaced to make room for the empire to expand. And so this is his. I don't have to look any further. My life, I lived it. I lived in the middle of displaced Oromo people, so that Finfinne Addis Ababa can be expanded to accommodate people that live there and disenfranchise the farmers. And so I respect you, and I really love that we're having this dialogue, and I hope that there is some understanding. But that's what I wanted to point out. Just because a leader is Oromo doesn't mean Oromo people.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you very much. I think, okay. Gil, you want to go? Okay, Gil, yeah.
Yes, Gele, actually, and
I'm sorry, Gele.
Sam, yeah, Sam, he wanted some reference. Actually, always the victorious, they are writing the history. But I will give you reference from your empire, from the empire. Actually, it is called 20th century Ethiopian political social doctrine. And it was created by Tedla Haile and the problem of multi-ethnicity. He was looking for solution to this. And this document reflects the contemporary thinking on question of language in relation to education. This is number one. Number two, you go to Bankhurst. Bankhurst is the historian in which all the empire loving people, they like him. And I mentioned it, you were not here. He wrote in his books about this doctrine in which he is saying this in words, and I am quoting, Tedda assimilation policy envisioned a cultural rearrangement in which the conquerors, it means the Abyssinians, raised the conquered, the southern nationalities, to their level, because he is thinking that we are subhuman, this British, And the latter people, we abandon our customs, social organization, and adopt the culture, the language, the religion of the conquerors. You want more than this? He said, in this way, he envisioned the schools should be taught in Amharic, even the Christian, and actually my friend Garda, he is Christian Orthodox, and he can mention this. The church, they cannot speak Afan Oromo. Courts of law, my my sister, she was mentioning, the citizenship tests was all done in Amharic. What do you want more than this? Thirdly, I am an example of a family affected by this. My elder brother, he did well in all the subjects, but he failed in Amharic. That's why he did not go to university. My beloved mother, she said she took me across the border to Somalia, and that's why I became a doctor. So I am an example, and we are all victims. Now, what is the narrative? The narrative, the whole war in Ethiopia is this: opposing narratives, unitary form of government in which the imperial, this discriminatory policies and everything should be brought back. And those who stand for multinational federalism, self-determination. Actually, Ari, I think you were mentioning self-determination. It is in the Charter of UN. And for me as an African, why I am denied to have my identity, my language, and my culture? My last point. Actually, there are people who were serving in the continent, the oppressors, and they were using an element of oppression. Among them were Oromos, were Somalis, but there is a term in English called acculturated. Some people who jumped out of their skin identity and they think and they believe the Amhara hegemony, the culture, the language is superior. They are marrying from them and they think the masses they came from, they are nothing. This is a creation of the system. And I think the African writers, Janwa Achibi, and the child in between two worlds, James Ngugi of Kenya, Wole Soyinka, all of these people, they are writing about it. So we should not have to be defeated. You should not have to be defeated. We want a place, whether we are Nigerian, Oromo, Somali, Ogaden, we want to have a place under the sun. Actually, the worst thing is that this form of government is denying the space to run our own affairs. Is this justice? Actually, what is happening in Ethiopia, it is the natural course of the history. All empires are doomed to crumble. And let me tell you something. Gambella, Oromia, Gimmat, Agao, Benishangul, Somali, Sidamo, Southern nationalities. In every party you see their manifesto, they are talking about highly of ethnic federalism, which is not now possible. And the only people who are talking about unitary form of government are only Amhara parties. So you understand what's happening. Thank you very much.